Welcome to the thought process. This is a space where I get to think out loud about life, ideas, and whatever I'm trying to understand in the moment. I don't always have answers here, just honest thoughts as they unfold. I'm so grateful you're here. So, let's dive in. Welcome back! Today we're diving into lesson 5 of 30 Before 30, Time to Grow. I'm recording this episode while I'm moving through what feels like my biggest up level to date, or at least what I believe is my biggest one so far. I've always been an optimist. I genuinely try to find the positive spin in life. And I've always been drawn to self-help books. But when COVID hit over 5 years ago, I suddenly had time, like so much time. I know COVID was extremely difficult for so many people, but for me, I took it as a permission slip, a chance to dive into anything and everything I had ever wanted to explore about myself. I read all the books. I tried all the different types of healing I could on myself. I learned how to hypnotize myself, strengthen my intuition, even explored my psychic abilities. It became my whole world, at least for a while. Self-help opened the door to optimism, or I believe that it opens the door to optimism. I truly believe that we're here on this earth to expand, to grow, to become better versions of ourselves. And when I look back, that belief makes sense. I grew up surrounded by books. My dad loves to read. There were books everywhere. I'm not exaggerating when I say there were stacks beside the toilet. Mostly nonfiction, always researching, always learning. The man never stops. Even to this day, he is still researching. And I didn't realize until years later how deeply that imprinted on my subconscious. Because funny enough, there was a point when I tried to take out more library books than I would buying, because I just thought, okay, like if I don't have enough room on my shelf, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to keep buying. But then there came a point where I was like, no, like I want to have the big library. I want to keep buying books. They're so pretty, and like there's something about a physical copy. I tried the Kindle world. I still do Kindle because I feel like there's some books that I would rather have on a Kindle and you can just take your Kindle anywhere. And like throw it in your bag and you can just have that fiction book that you're reading, versus I love having a real nonfiction book, like a physical copy in my hands where I can highlight, annotate, and just add my own little notes everywhere. So that's just a little background on me. But now here I am surrounded by my own pile of books, like fiction and nonfiction. And funny enough, my partner loves books even more than I do. Like, no joke, we are bordering a public library in our home, okay? And I truly never escaped them. Like, they are everywhere. Anyways, I'm here to talk about growth. Growth comes in so many forms, and I wholeheartedly believe this. Growth is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It is worth it. And I know I said that about forgiveness, but honestly, I feel like all of these lessons are just so important because they kind of all tie in to each other. Like growth, you forgive by growing, right? And I'll talk about other stuff later, but I'm just going to keep going. Otherwise, I will go on 10,000 different tangents, and that's not what today's about. Today, I really want to stick to the flow of what I had. And so, going back, growth is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and it is worth it. And I say that while I sit here in pain from my highest up level yet. And I'll get to that. Stay with me here. But first, I want to talk to you about how growth gets tested. During that time of deep spiritual exploration during COVID, life didn't pause. I lost my mom's brother the year after COVID began. Around that time, I found Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. I tried to embody it. I even tried to convince my uncle who was dying of cancer to embody it too. And that's where I learned something important. You can't convince someone of something they don't want to believe. That loss shattered me. And it took me almost 4 years to realize this. Spirituality is like any other belief system. Faith can't be forced, it has to be chosen. And after that, my growth became quiet. I stopped sharing my learnings. I didn't talk about the investments I was making in myself. I didn't even tell my parents I was going to therapy. And therapy, by the way, has been a complete game changer. Since then, I have definitely told them, but for the first couple of years, it was really difficult. I found such a stigma around it, and it wasn't because I was going to therapy. It was more the stigma that growing up, there was this idea that if you went to therapy, there was something wrong with you. But I wholeheartedly believe that going to therapy has allowed me to grow into the person that I am today. And part of therapy is finding someone that you trust, who you truly believe sees and understands you, because that is so powerful. And again, I've made such leaps and bounds in therapy because I wanted to grow, not because anyone else told me. One time I was sitting in therapy with my therapist, and she was telling me how, her job is to eventually have me leave her. Like, she wants me to eventually stop making appointments and stop coming to her. And in my head, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I will forever, as long as she wants me, like, I will forever be going to her, because to me, I want to continue growing. But I understand that, like, you originally sign up for therapy because there is something not inherently wrong with you, but there are things that you were trying to work through. But I'm like, I will forever have issues to work through. So I'm like, hold on, you're going to have to forever have a spot for me. So I digress. And so the deeper I went into this work, the clearer it became. I wasn't doing this for anybody else. I was doing it for me. Because growth is personal. Growth is intimate. And growth is worth it. And growth can be painful. We don't talk about that part enough. We live in a world that wants results instantly. Instant dopamine, instant gratification. But growth doesn't work that way. Growth is slow and it's quiet, and often it happens when you're not looking. This actually showed up in my classroom recently in the most perfect way. So I'm going to tell you this story. We have an indoor classroom vegetable garden. We planted seeds in November and watered them daily. Like, at first, the kids were constantly checking on them, watching, waiting, hoping. Then it became tedious. Nothing seemed to be happening. And then yesterday, months later, I noticed something. A purple bean hanging from a vine. I stopped my small group lesson and called everybody over. The kids were in shock, and so was I. And so one of them asked, how did we not notice this? Because growth happened quietly, because the foundation was set, because no one was hovering anymore. And that's growth. And that brings me to this current up level. I've been working through my own limiting beliefs around money, something that's been a theme my entire life. I swear it is a sacred contract that's in my numerology, and I think it's just something that I need to work through, that was kind of like imprinted on me, that I need to work through so that I can better, like, if I better understand it, then I can like pass it down to other people and like through generations and everything like that. I just think that it's something that I have been called onto this earth to understand. And so every January, I tell myself, this is the year. And every year I fall off until this year. I swear this is my year, because this is a year one. As a collective, this is a year one. And in my own numerology, it's also a year one. So I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of change, a lot of energy and motion, and I'm really excited about it. But it's kind of scary. And so going back to my story, for Christmas, my partner gifted me a coaching call with Tara Brunette, someone I deeply admire. She's this amazing manifestation teacher. I think I'm going to try to link her podcast below. But she has a podcast website. Anyways, just dive into her work. Amazing. Okay? And during our coaching call, we got to the root of what I'd been struggling with. And it came down to nervous system regulation, which is something I'm going to talk about in a later episode. And since then, she's become my coach. And one thing I kept coming back to was this desire to create, to talk, to be seen, which is how this podcast came to be. But even then, I felt fear, especially around telling my parents and just sharing it with anyone that wasn't in my immediate bubble. Sharing it, being public about being seen. And I know that doesn't sound scary, or maybe it does sound scary to people, but to me, this was like terrifying. This was like, I can put myself out there, but not tell anyone until they find out, if that makes any sense. Okay? And so last Thursday, I did a meditation on clearing the fear of being seen, and it cracked me open. Okay, I cried for an hour. I shook, I danced, like I had to move this energy through me because I had so much energy moving through my body. I felt lighter than I had in years. And then the next morning, my shoulder and neck were in excruciating pain. At first, I thought I had pulled a muscle, but as the days went on, it became clear. This was a physical manifestation of the healing work that I had done. I had felt the energy in my throat during the meditation, and it had to move somewhere. And so it moved into my shoulder and my neck. And so when I finally saw my massage therapist, she helped me release it. And it reminded me of this truth. Everything you experience is part of the process. Growth isn't always comfortable, but it's always purposeful. So if you're on the edge of growth, do the work. Go to therapy, meditate, read, learn, hire the coach, because it is worth it. Because you are worth it. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this. How are you meeting growth right now? With resistance? With trust? And if you want, you can share it in the poll below. I made one. Apparently it's a thing. Or just take a moment for yourself and journal about it. Because again, at the end of the day, it's for you. Anyways, I'm really grateful you're here. And until next time.